All right, Bruce, back at you on the weekend morning here. Um, Let me give you a heads up on a couple of things that you guys should be aware of. Um, Even in my Discord, it happened to me today. Well, there's two or three areas, and I know some of you may have experienced these kind of things, but there's a lot more hackers. There's a lot of evil people out on the internet, and it varies. So in the Discord, somebody took my profile and put a period at the end, Bruce period, and then they copied the photo, and we're sending out friend requests to people in the Discord and then trying to get them in hey, let me see your profile and your bank account. I want to see what you have, and I can help you, pretending to be me. And luckily, one of the really sharp guys in there, Charles, who's been pretty loyal to the channel, and he's in a couple other Discords, and he alerted me and a couple of guys. So just be careful. I'll give you another situation I encountered. I was out looking at YBIT, getting ready to do this, and I was perusing some of the comment boards. And somebody has been insistent in there how bad of a fund this is, and it's on top of BITO, and they should have never done it, and the typical, it has 100% exposure to the downside and only a 15% potential for upside. And I called the guy out and wrote to him, and I got all this. Well, you obviously can't read. Jay Petroselli in his interview said, it's a covered call. And I said, well, he's saying that, but he's also limited by the SEC what he can say. It's not entirely a covered call. You can't change the definition. They're covering their synthetic, and it's a strategy to get income. So the synthetic is a fully bullish, and selling a covered call when you own something, which they don't, but to balance their synthetic, they're just referring to it as a covered call strategy. But it definitely is not a traditional and not a covered call in that they own the underlying. So, and then I told the person, well, listen, you said they're exposed to 100% of the downside. So how can it be if even, I'm not going to accept the word covered call, but their strategy to write those, then you can't go down to 100% because you're collecting money. That underlying doesn't collect any money, right? So it finally dawned on me, never argue. Mark Twain has a famous quote, never argue with an idiot. They'll only bring you down to their level and beat you with their experience. So I just don't bother. If somebody thinks they're right and they're half smart, then they're right. Who am I to school them on what reality is, right? So let's jump into this. I thought you might find a little bit of that of humorous, but just be careful. I know most of you are, but it's just an increased level of hacking and at all levels. I see it on my quotes. I put out my last video, and somebody comes on there and says, I'm not very good with investing. I'm looking to get better advice. And then boom, 12 or 13 other people comment. It's all set up. It's all, Haiti Jones or Ira Taff or whoever it is. So don't you guys out there in my listening audience fall for any of that nonsense. There are people just trying to get you to contact that person and scam you for your money. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. All right, let's jump into BITO and YBIT. So on Friday, BITO was down 1.14. Right? We were flat. So yeah, I guess we are exposed to 100% of the downside. Right. All right. So we did a little better than BITO did. Let's see what they did. So Friday, you typically buy your calls, and if you need to roll a synthetic, you roll. We didn't add any synthetic positions because we actually went down 50,000 shares, went from 2,025,000 to 1975. So no biggie. This is still, there are just so many BTC-oriented funds out there. It's very hard for YIELDAMX to get a lot of people in this fund. So I would say also, that when I get to the payout, it'll be very interesting. I have good news for you, but I have a dilemma. I think that YIELDAMX will have to decide on this. So what they did is they bought back all of their 621s for a penny. Good job, fund manager, right? So very little money spent on that scenario. So we captured 99.9%, right? 28 cents, 23 cents, 19 cents. And so what did we do then that this 10,250 and another 4,100? Well, we had already on Thursday written a 628 where we got 44 cents. We then wrote 10,250 for 54 cents. Now, and let me tell you, and then 4,100 at 25. So collectively, the 25s are up there. I'll show you on weeklies in a minute. Now, what I think may be going on, it's hard to figure out. So we're trading at 24.20. There's a full 5 days of trading, and they wrote the bulk, or 2/3 or more, of the contracts at a strike price that's below this. So remember that BITO declares their dividend and pays. They always declare a few days before us. Sometimes it's on the 1st, sometimes it's on the end of the month. They don't tell you, the best I can figure out. I looked on ProShares, I've looked many times, but somebody that's owned it for a long time maybe has an insight that's listening. I own it, but I don't have any additional insight. I guess I could go out and look at a message board on BITO and see if anybody's communicated. But in general, they're the 31st, the end of the month, or the 1st that they declare, and it varies. Just like YIELDAMX, sometimes they're on the 3rd for declaration, sometimes they're on the 5th. In theory, they could be on the 4th. It's right around that time frame. And then the pay date can end up going over a weekend, or if declaration's on a Tuesday, typically by Thursday or Friday, you get paid. So the reason I say that is that distribution, as soon as they declare it, let's say I'll make it up, it's $1.50. Then that stock is going to drop $1.50 the next day. And if that runs into next week and expires, what if their declaration's on the 28th? Well, it'll almost have to be the 27th. So I'm not sure what's going on there, that it's underneath. I've never seen one written underneath. Now, Bitcoin has been pulling back itself. Let's see if I can. I may not even have anything active right now to check it. No, I don't. I turned off my, let me just check here. I can, live prices. But normally I have my thinkorswim up, but I had to shut it down overnight. Because clearly BTC had been going down. It doesn't look. Let me get US dollars. Yeah, 64. I mean, that's down, but that's where it was. It hasn't traveled really any further, I think, from Friday's activity. All right, let's get going here. So we saw what happened there. So we put some more money in it, 10,250. That's 553.86, right? So again, I told you about shares, so the shares are back down. Oh, also, by the way, I got a tip that, in fact, YMAX may have added BITO, may have added YBIT, and that had to do with some of that big 4,005, the 625 and the 300. It could have been one of those days, or a large portion of both of those days, where they were buying their initial stake. It's like GDX eventually, after it pays out this month and sometime later going into the next month, then they tend to pick them up. They never pick them up before they paid out or made it through a certain length of time. So that could well be the situation. It's more of a rumor I heard. I can't verify it, but it seems viable. Okay, let's jump over into the weeklies and take a look at what that looks like. Well, here's our weeklies, and you'll see what I mean, right? It closed at 24.20. We're at 17.8, and they wrote, you know, 2/3 of the calls, more actually, but I'll call that's a safe number, at 0.83 below where it's trading. Now again, Bitcoin is trading down, but that doesn't mean it can't reverse or it might not move up some more. So I can't tell if it's, and if it isn't this week, for sure it'll be the following week that they will take that into account and write it, which seems strange. Okay, guys, so how'd they do? Well, they captured 99%, and look at this. We've already captured almost 40% of the newly written stuff. Let's look at that on holdings. Most of it comes right here. There's 525 of these were written on Thursday, and then we wrote again on Friday. And let me pick up. So they got 28.5. I know the other ones, let's see what they were written for. That would have been written over 2 days. So they wrote one at 44, and then they wrote 54. Were those, no, the one is the 25. And then they wrote another 25 at 21. That's a big difference, right? So the 525 would definitely be in the money now because that's at 28.5. So this has gone down 7 cents in the negative, and they're in the money on this one by about 15, 16 cents. So that's what's driving that. When you see that, right? So at 39, they've got 654,000 collected, and they could buy it all back for 393. So that's pretty cool. I like that. All right, so the synthetic continues to increase, right? And that's nothing more than the fact that we're going down rather than going up. The synthetic is a bullish bet, right, on both the call and the put. So when the underlying goes up, that reduces that. It either makes you money or it reduces the loss. So that's part of the yin and yang here, guys. So we're still high. If you watch my last video, this was, it was the same number, and this was up around 1930 or 1940. We're way out of sync about what the net asset values add up to and what the actual close is. I don't normally see that wide of a range. But our shares went down. I redid the NAV. It's closer, but it's still a fair amount away. All right, let's jump over. So I talked about that. The share count went down. I'm not going to bother with the arrow up or down, but it is down. Let's go look at the holdings. Let's go look at the payout. Just get to the point. I've been long enough. All right. So, classic, right? I came along here last month and said, hey, they're going to be probably 250 plus, and they came back and no, they didn't want to pay that money out. We had a liability even though we collected 4.8 million and only had 725 shares. They could have paid us $3, but they're saying, hey, we owed 5 million, right? But don't ever think just because they have a paper loss somewhere, they're not going to pay you. They're always going to pay you. And honestly, wherever the price was at $1.37, it was an 81% yield. So here we are this next month. Now we got an $18 million liability. But look at the net income we've collected over 2 months, right? We're at 17, 18, 2. So one hand, you could say we're about break even, but if you, and I think I rolled this number into here, yeah. So we're pretty close to being break even, but they're always going to pay you money because that can just disappear at any time, right? All it takes is BITO to move up, Bitcoin to move up, and all of a sudden that debt gets wiped out, and it's a paper loss. Their bank account still got all this money in it. So, but I'm not as optimistic, okay? I'm not going to predict a big number. That's sort of the definition of insanity. You keep on doing the same thing and expecting a different result. It's like arguing with the idiot, right? All right, guys, I had to make myself laugh on that one. So what I did today, instead of just trying to guess and go, well, maybe they gave us 150, maybe they want to make this the highest yielding, BTC-oriented fund out there. They got a lot of options. But I took, and remember, we were at a higher price. I don't remember the price, but call it 19. And it was yielding 81. So I said, okay, what's 81 again? And I got $1.21. So right now, I'm just guessing they're going to say, okay, we're going to pay $1.21 because it matches last month's yield. And honestly, if you can buy a fund here, it's like Ulti sometimes. You get $1.29, you get $1.07. People jump in at Ulti and it just keeps going down, right? But the reality is a $14, $15 stock, it's a heck of a yield. So I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. I think a lot of people have to be careful, though. If you own Coney and you own Misty and you load up on YBIT, and we do get this 52,000 retrace, who knows, right? I'm not telling you it's happening, but I don't like breaking 65. And if we get to 60 and we don't bounce back and we break 60, then I think once we get in the 50s, 52 is like a giant magnet. It's massive support. But it could happen. I don't know. I hope not, right? I'm doing protective videos all the time for you guys. So on this one, I'm trying to do my early prediction, and I'm saying to you, I don't see any way that they wouldn't pay us $1.21. If they want to be generous, if they want to make more, hay in their own fund and get it more popular, come out with $1.80 or something, right? Because I think BITO paid $1.79 or something last month. But again, that's on a, 29, 27. Yeah, it's only 24 right now. But let's see. They're going to declare before we do. So that may tip the hand on what YIELDAMX does. Okay, that's what I got for you guys. I got plenty of money in this thing. It's just what they decide to pay. Okay, Bruce out. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. It's for fun and education. Have a great weekend. See ya.